All right, let's take a look at an example of solving a word problem using a calculator. Okay, this is on page 4 of your notes. The table below represents the popularity of the word selfie by year. So if you look at that first row right here on your table, if you look at the first row, hold on, I just make the mess. Okay, there we go. If you look at the first row, that is talking about year. Now, they're not starting at the beginning of time. It is starting at 2014. The reason why I know is because they say 2014 is equal to 0. What that means is that where the 0 is, that's really the year 2014. So if these decimals are like all in for 2014, and then 1 means that 1 year after 2014. So that's really talking about the year 2015. The 2 talks about 2 years after 2015. That will be 2016, and so on and so forth. The second row talk about interest. What was the interest? What was the popularity of the word selfie? How are they measuring it? They're measuring it by the percentage of search that people would search that contain the word selfie. So, for example, in 2014, 100% interest over the word selfie because it was 100% search, Google search. The first question they ask you is identify the independent variable. Remember, independent variable is your x variable. Usually independent variable talks about time. It doesn't matter what's going on, like what's happening, it's going to keep going regardless. In this case, it will be the year, and I'm going to be a little bit more specific. It is year after 2014 because they did give you the starting year. The dependent variable is going to be your y value. Your y value in this case is your interest. How are they measuring the interest? They're measuring it by percent. So percent Googled, right? So it'll be 100%, 88%, 75%. Percent is a unit for your dependent variable. Now, here's the next part. They're asking you to use your calculator, which is decimals, to find a linear regression. Remember, regression is the same thing as your equation. So basically, they're asking you to, hey, go to decimals and find me the equation for this table. So let me see if I can split screen this. Where is it? Decimal right here. Oh, there it is. Okay, so now I'm in decimals. And I'm looking at this. I already put in my table in decimals, right? Because this is a big table. You have to put in every single number. So you have to go all the way to 3 and put in 3,48 that's a very, very last point. So what I want you to do right now is pause the video and type in this entire table in your decimal. Remember, to do that, you're going to need to do the add button and go to table in order to add in the table from decimals. All right, now that you have paused the video, you typed in your table, let's actually find the equation. You see this little magic button right up here on the upper left-hand corner with the 4 dots in the line. Click on it. And it's going to give you the equation. That equation, I'm going to copy it straight into my answer. Y equals negative 14.05 689 x plus 87.24972. 24972. Great. That is my equation. And let me make it into full screen again. There we go. That's my equation. Normally, I would have been fine with that, and you can keep using the equation for other things. However, on IXL, the things that you're going to practice with, they're going to ask you to round to the nearest thousands. What does that mean? That means that I need to look at the first 3 number after the decimal and decide, using the 4th number to decide whether I'm keeping those 3 numbers the same or I'm adding 1 to those 3 numbers. If you look at this, the first three number is 0.56. The fourth number is 8. That 8 is bigger than 5. What that means is that I need to add 1 to 0.56. So really, my equation looks like this. Y equals negative 14 point. Instead of 0.56, I added 1 to it, so it becomes 0.57. Drop the other two number, x. And then keep going. Plus 87 point up. Here's the other one. You need 3 numbers after the decimal. So that means I'm looking at the fourth number. In this case, it's 7. That means that I have to add 1 to 249. So that means that becomes 87.249 plus 1 is 250. So I'm just going to do 87.250. This right here with the rounded number, that would be what IXL wants you to answer. Okay, so either one of those equations are good. Now that I have an equation, I can continue. It says, what does the point 2.5 comma 50 mean in the context of this problem? So now they're asking you to give me the units. 2.5 is x. X talks about year. So now I know that I'm talking about 2.5 year. Don't forget, you start at 2014. So 2.5 would be years after 2014. What happened? You're talking about my 50. What is 50? 50 is your percent. What is the percent talking about? Percent is talking about interest. So that means that I'm saying that the interest is 50%. So what I'm really looking for is I'm looking for the number 2.5. I'm looking for the number 50%. And I'm looking for the unit year after 2014. And we're talking about percent and we're talking about interest. So like those are the things I'm looking for. What is each number representing for X and for Y? Okay, moving on. Identify the correlation coefficient. Y'all, we talked about the word correlation before. Correlation is that, remember that positive correlation and negative correlation where the dots are going up or the dots are coming down? Well, correlation coefficient is your R value. Where can I find the R value? I find it in decimal. You see this from decimal. Well, let me go back to decimals then. So if I'm looking at decimals right here, the R value is right here on the bottom, where right underneath your equation you have statistics, R squared, and then the R. That R is the value, that's the R value that I'm looking for, right? So if I am writing this down, my R value would be negative 0.9145. That's my R value. That's the first question. Identify the R value. What kind of correlation exists between the two variables? That means, what does this R value stand for? Remember what we talked about. When we have an R value, I can change it to percent. So 2 times to the right, that's where the new decimal is going to be. It's going to be negative 91.45% accurate. So what exactly does that mean? That means that it's going to tell me 2 things. Let me expand this again. It's going to tell me 2 things. One is going to tell me how accurate is it. Is 91.45% accurate. That means that it's actually really good. This is really strong. Think about it like a test. If you have a 91% on a test, you have a strong test. So for sure, this is strong. Now, next, you see that negative sign in front? That's the second thing it's going to tell me. It's going to tell me that it is a negative correlation. So two things it's going to tell me. It's going to tell me whether it's strong or weak, and then it's going to tell me whether it's negative or positive, all from that number. So this is a strong negative correlation. So that tells me that the data, the points are decreasing. The interests are decreasing because of the negative. And then it's strong, meaning that I can trust the prediction I use if I were to use that equation, let's say, to predict what the interest is in 10 years after 2014. Okay, so that is the correlation coefficient. R comes from decimals, and then you can change it to a percent. That tells you whether it's strong or weak. The sign in front of it tells you whether it's positive or negative. All right, let's talk about the y-intercept. It says interpret the y-intercept and slope in the context of this problem. So there's two things that I need to interpret, the y-intercept and the slope. And I'm grabbing both of those numbers from the equation that I wrote on part B, right? Those number is going to come in and play and tell me about my y-intercept and my slope. The y-intercept is at 87.250, right? What does that mean? Y-intercept means I'm talking about y value. That's a percent interest, a percent Google. When? When is it happening? At the beginning. That's always when it's happening. At the beginning. Really, that's at the year 2014. So what happened at that year 2014? You got 87%. 87.25%, right? Because that's your unit. What about 87.25% interest? You're talking about interest in the word selfie, right? That's what it means. That's how I interpret the y-intercept. You want to interpret it by telling me the number, so the x and the y, and by telling me the unit. So you got percent interest, or since you're already telling me the year 2014, that's fine. Or you can say the beginning would also means at the x value when x equals 0. And then the last thing, they like asking these kind of questions, the slope. Again, you go back to the equation. You grab the number from the equation, negative 14.057. That's your slope. How do you interpret it? Remember, slope is rise over run. That means the line right here on the fraction, that's the word per. Now, what unit am I using for the y value? If I go back up to the table, y value is my percent, right? It's my percent Google. So it'll be percent. That's the unit for y. The line is the word per. The unit for x is talking about year. So it'll be percent per year, right? So let's put the number in front. So we go negative 14.057. Let's put the unit down. Percent per year. Okay, great. Let's do a little bit more. What does negative means? Negative means that it's going down, right? So I'm going to erase that negative. Instead of saying negative, I'm going to say that it goes down. It goes down, right? That's the negative part of it. Well, what goes down? What are you talking about? You're talking about the interest. So put that word right in front. The interest goes down 14.057% per year. Now, this right there is your interpretation. You tell me what you're talking about. You tell me whether it goes up and down. And you tell me how much, and then the unit, right? These are the things I'm looking for. What you're talking about goes up or down, the actual slope, and then the unit. All right, this is some of the questions that they'll ask you when you're doing your section 2, your paper part of your test, of your common assessment and of your quiz.